Hello, welcome to Locked on Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And on today's episode, we're going to be looking at the cutdowns for the Sharks and doing some stock up, stock down for some of the players on the very early parts of training camp. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked on Sharks.
You're Locked on Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at Fear the Fin and San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you, of course, for making Locked on Sharks your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts, and of course, subscribe on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. That way you know whenever every episode of Locked on Sharks comes out. And today we're going to look at where the Sharks roster is right now. We had our first set of cuts as some of the players got sent down to the Barracuda as they open their training camp. So they want to start filling those up. And I know people are already wondering, why is this guy going and why is this guy staying? So we're going to look at some of these cuts, why these guys are staying and why these guys are going, and then do kind of a nice temperature check on some of these players on how their stock is after a very short period of training camp here. But let's kind of see where people are trending as we get going. So let's go ahead and start with the cut downs. Of course, I think that was the big news of the day. So a couple guys going back to their AHL, or not their AHL, their junior teams, which none of these guys really were a big surprise. 2022 fourth round pick Jake Furlong going back to Halifax. And then Liam Gilmartin and Max McHugh, both the 2021 draft picks, going back to the London Knights in the OHL. So it would have been a shock for any of these guys to be on the Barracuda this year. These guys, we knew these guys were going to be going back, and especially with the Q and the O, like those seasons getting ready to get started here, good to get those guys back. So that way they can get into the swing of things here. So, and then guys getting sent down to the AHL. So a couple interesting ones here. Forward Ethan Cardwell, forward winger Brandon Coe, Dylan Hamelick, Patrick Holloway, who is on a PTO. Same thing with Mark Lewinsky. Both these guys are on PTOs. Mitchell Russell and Ozzy Wiesblatt. And I've heard a lot of people like saying, wow, why didn't Ozzy, or Coe break the first wave of cuts and stay with the team? And it's kind of shocking at first. Once you think about it, it makes a lot of sense, right? These guys are both wingers, or most of these guys here are wingers. And if you look at the Sharks roster right now, they have a lot of question marks of who's going to be slotting in where on the wings, right? So I mean, after Timo Meier, Timo Meier is going to be on the first line playing next to Hurdle. After that, it's a lot of guys trying to figure out where these pieces fit. So instead of giving these guys opportunities to maybe play some NHL preseason games, use those preseason games, which the Sharks don't have very many, especially with their trip to Europe. Use those preseason games with the actual NHL players who are going to be figuring out which lines work under Quinn's new system. So I know, and then Braden Bowman, Samuel Meyer, Josh Lawrence, and Mitchell Smith. All these guys were on ATOs. Let's see if they can maybe potentially get a contract. They're going to go back to their respective CHL teams, and kind of the Sharks will keep tabs on them. So the roster right now, go quick run through it. So forwards, Andrew Agazzino, Barabanov, who's still dealing with his injury, will probably get an update tomorrow, but I would be shocked if they're rushing him. The Sharks know what they're getting with Barabanov. So Nick Bonino, Thomas Bordeleau, Logan Couture, William Eklund, Jonah Gadovich, Noah Gregor, Daniel Gushin. Interesting. He's still getting as a winger. He's still getting a chance up at the big club. Tomas Hertl, Luke Johnson, Luke Kunin, or Cunnin. I got to work on that. Cunnin, Kevin Labanc, Oscar Lindblom, Steven Lorentz, Timo Meyer, Matt Nieto, Adam Raska, Scott Reedy, Tristan Robbins, CJ Seuss, Evgeny Svechnikov, Max Verano, Jeffrey Veal, Jasper Weatherby. And then on defensemen, they got 16 left. Matt Benning, Nick Cicek, Mario Ferraro, Artem Gurev, Scott Harrington, Santeri Hadaka, Eric Carlson, Artemi Knyzev, Nikolai Kanizhov, who's hurt, Jacob Magna, Ryan Merkley, Marcus Nudavara, Montana Onyebuchi, Derek Polite, Adam Radim Shimmick, Mark Edward Vlasic, and then the goaltenders, Bopet Dell, Imond, Gaudreau, Capo Kakinen, Straussman, Itu Makanemi, and James Reimer. And I think some people also like, well, why are they keeping Bopet and Gaudreau if they sent all the other guys? The Sharks have a split squad game on Friday between Vegas and Anaheim. So there's going to be 2 games played at the same time in 2 separate places if you follow baseball. Or anyway, so they're going to do this 2 times. That way they can kind of get more games in. So having extra goaltenders right now is kind of needed just in case something happens, somebody gets hurt. You kind of need that backup situation. So I'm sure after Friday's game, Bopet and Gaudreau will probably be heading back to the CH and to the OH or CHL, one of them in the WHL, one of them in the OHL, but they'll be heading back. So, and then same thing with guys like Tristan Robbins, who's a center. The Sharks just need kind of more bodies available for these split squad games. We kind of know who the centers are going to be on the Sharks, and then you've got, so you have Hertl, Couture, Nick Bonino, and then Sturm. And then you've got Bordeleau and Weatherby and Reedy, and just having another one of a Tristan Robbins who's not going to make the Sharks right now, but just having him available if they need him to play center in one of these split squad games. So Gushin's still interesting, especially with how many bubble guys there are on the, but that they're keeping him around for a little bit longer before sending him down to the Barracuda. Just apparently, I guess that's a good sign that he's having a pretty solid training camp right now. So before we continue, and we're going to look at whose stock is rising and whose stock may be dipping or whose stock is holding right now, do want to take a quick break. Let you guys know, of course, about our friends over at BetOnline. You guys know BetOnline is your number one source for all your football betting information this season. Find out the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for your sports wagering information with live betting, which is always super fun. Again, if you're live betting the Dolphins, you're probably going to feel good about yourself. And up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. They're the fastest and easiest way to check in all your favorite games and events. You got Major League Baseball, playoffs starting, MMA, boxing, golf, hockey is coming up, of course, as you're listening to this podcast. And then you also have NBA starting. So head over to betonline.net, your usual mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so we spent the first segment kind of looking at where the roster is at right now and some of the guys heading back and why it makes sense for some of the guys to kind of stick around where they did. But now let's take a look at which players' stock is kind of rising and who's kind of making the most of their opportunities. And I think we have to start with Kevin Labanc, who has come out of the gate playing on Couture's line. So it's been him, Couture, and Lindblom playing together, and he's looked good so far from all accounts in the scrimmages. He's scored a few times already, and especially after coming off of last season where he missed 61 games, due to healthy scratches and a shoulder injury, and he scored 6 points in the 21 games that he did. So it's good to see him kind of returning to form. So I don't know if he's ever going to be the $5 million player that the Sharks hoped he'd be in the 60-point season that we were promised from Doug Wilson. But if we can get Labanc back on track and being, a 45-point guy, like I think Sharks fans would be really happy with that, especially after the Labanc we've seen the last couple of seasons. And it looks like he's going to get a shot to play on the first power play with Eklund, with Hertl, Meyer, Couture, and Erik Karlsson. So having Labanc, who can be, that's how he kind of cut his teeth, was being that power play specialist. We know he can be deadly on the power play, and getting a fresh opportunity under Mike Grier and David Quinn and being on the power play here could be exactly what he is needed. So good to see Labanc kind of making the most of his early opportunity, not showing much rust after, missing so much time. We'll see as he gets into more and more game action, if he can kind of hit the ground running. But good for him to really come into camp ready to go and, not show wear and tear from the injury. So I think he's, as a Sharks fan, you can kind of point to him and be like, I've talked about before which guys are we expecting to make a big jump. Pointing to Labanc and having Labanc be a guy where we got nothing from Labanc last year to now a potential 40, 45, 50-point guy if he's playing on Couture's line all season and playing on a power play one role. That might be a guy that we've, kind of left out of going into this season and, thinking of how can the Sharks start to turn this thing around. So stock holds. So I didn't want to say up or down with these guys. I'm very interested to see how this week develops for them. Because there's a little bit of both for them. So we'll kind of lump these guys together. William Eklund and Thomas Bordeleau. So both of them, you can say a nice stock up because they got to play on Sunday night's, preseason game against the Kings. They both got extended minutes and extended opportunities, especially Eklund, who got to play a lot on the penalty kill. Got to see Eklund play a bunch of different opportunities and situations to see how he fits and see if he's ready to kind of take the grind and be an NHL player and play different roles. And, he's that's good that he's getting this opportunity. We haven't seen him with the Lions. He's been mostly playing with kind of those AHL type of guys. He's been playing with Agazino and Seuss to start training camp. We haven't really seen him in practice getting an opportunity to play with kind of more solidified guys. So I want to see where he is slotted as the camp starts to get kind of trimmed down and Quinn maybe starts to kind of play with the lines a little bit more and see if maybe, especially with Barabanov out right now, maybe he gets a shot on that top line with Hertl and Meyer and kind of see how he responds to that. So no practice on Monday, so we'll have to kind of see how things look this week. I know they have a lot of preseason games that they're trying to shove in to a short amount of time, especially before they head over to Europe. And then, of course, Thomas Bordeleau. So is it kind of the same thing where it's a numbers game with him where it's going to be tough for him to crack that, Hertl, Couture, Bonino's, Nico Sturm in there. But he's been getting a better opportunity than some of the other bubble centers like Jasper Weatherby and Scott Reedy, where, he got to play that third line role for the Sharks in the Sunday's preseason game. Hasn't really had much opportunity in training camp. We've seen where David Quinn's been very much, I'm going to put all the veterans together and then let kind of the AHL and the rookies work together. So haven't really seen too much mixing and matching. He's been playing mostly with Jeffrey Viel and Max Veranu in training camp. And both those guys have been pretty quiet so far. Did get to play with Susan Svechnikov on Sunday. And, we know Bordeleau had a fair amount of shots and, got some opportunities there. Didn't get any penalty kill time, but that's okay. So I want to see how both these guys do as as we have roster trims now and if Quinn kind of mixes and matches and see if these guys, if either player gets an opportunity to play with more solidified guys as the preseason kind of wears on here. So yeah, very interesting to see these guys. I think again, so far, seeing Labanc getting back to the guy that we want to see him. And then again, hold on Bordeleau and Eklund, just because got to see a little bit how David Quinn now responds to what they've put on tape and what they've done so far in training camp. So before we continue with our stock up and stock down, do want to let you guys know, of course, about Locked On NHL. Thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And of course, subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube right now, just go ahead and boom, hit that subscribe. You'll be happy you did, especially as the season goes on. Going to be doing more live events on the weekends. We'll probably do, hopefully, if we can, we'll see. Friday night, just penciled in right now for a potential live to kind of talk about the preseason games. So potentially, just keep it there. But when you're done checking out Locked On Sharks, make sure you guys go check out Locked On NHL. They've got you covered for all your NHL needs. Get Western Conference Wednesdays. Thursdays are going to be doing power rankings all season long, so you can see where these Sharks are at. Right now, I think last week we just did our head coach power rankings. They got new power rankings stuff every Thursday, so go make sure you guys go check that out. They got you covered Monday through Friday over at Locked On NHL, wherever you get podcasts, and of course, subscribe on YouTube there as well. So, all right, so far we have Labanc, definite stock up. Bordeleau, Eklund, hold right now. Not well, not picking yet. I do want to see how Quinn responds. And then another stock up, I'm going to kind of lump all three of these guys together, is the defenseman. Marcus Nudavara getting that top pairing, first opportunity at the top pairing, playing with Erik Karlsson right now. And we, kind of speculated where he would fit into the Sharks defensive core after they signed him. He has a lot of that puck transition that you kind of covet. And, you normally expect him a player like that to play with a more defensive defenseman. Same thing with Karlsson. You expect Karlsson, okay, let's play with someone who can be a little bit more defensive, a little more responsible. Not that Nudavara isn't responsible, but that's how you normally kind of see it. But Quinn's kind of experimenting right now. I think a Nudavara-Karlsson pairing is super fun. You're going to get just more offense, hopefully more production than having to make Erik Karlsson do everything every time he's on the ice. Not that Erik Karlsson shouldn't try to do as much as he can when he's on the ice, but giving him someone who can, help out in a little bit. And it's not Erik Karlsson having to bring the puck up every time or make that transition pass. Nudavara can help out with that as well. And, instead of Nudavara, I penciled him as the second right-handed defenseman. He's getting opportunities. So I know Quinn was pretty happy with how him and Karlsson played on Sunday night's game. So pretty, want to see how this continues as practice and the games continue on this week. So, and then Marc-Edouard Vlasic, who by all accounts, most of us thought he was probably a buyout candidate this summer. Not to think that he maybe won't be a buyout candidate next summer, but I think he's one of those new fresh start guys under David Quinn. Right now, he is expected to kind of be that second pair defenseman with Ferraro playing the shutdown role. Ferraro playing the right side on his offhand, but Quinn's been pretty happy with how Vlasic's looked so far in camp. We'll see how he looks in some preseason games, hopefully here coming up. But again, for a guy who we wanted to see off the team, or maybe not, a lot of us expected him to not be here. If he can maybe take a fresh start under David Quinn, hopefully find a spark in his game. And I don't think we're ever going to see shut down Vlasic again, but if he can be a competent defenseman and you just don't look at his cap friendly page, I think we'll call that a win. So, and then Radim Šimić, another one of these fresh start guys, seems really, you can kind of tell from his interviews and talking with the media where, it seems to just be enjoying hockey again, especially after what was a really tough year for him last year, not getting to play a lot. And then when he's asked to play, you're having to play out of position. And that's tough for a guy like that, where it's, kind of, of course, he's going to do what the coaches ask, but not being put in a position to succeed. So right now he's starting with Matt Benning, what's probably going to be on the bottom pair role. And he got some power play on Sunday's game. I know they had 7 power play opportunities, but again, right now with Quinn, where he's kind of mixing and matching, letting these guys do well. And from all accounts, Šimik did a pretty solid job on the power play. And I think one of the under-realized things with Radim Šimik is his shot. He does have a cannon back there, and hopefully gets to use it a little bit more. Not that Matt, I think he, playing with Brent Burns, of course, Brent Burns is going to take all the offense out of the defensive pair. So hopefully with him and Benning, we get to see a little bit of the offensive juggernaut that is Radim Šimik, and, get to utilize that shot of his. So good for Šimik, again, coming in with a good attitude, wanting to play, and, again, just that fresh start, I think, for a lot of these guys after what we've seen from Bob Bugner the last couple of years. So another stock down, and this one's kind of not really fair, but Eetu Makiniemi, who the goalie that the Sharks acquired in the Brent Burns trade, I projected him to come in and compete for a potential Barracuda position, or, kind of compete with Strauss-Mann as the starter for the Barracuda. And now, he dealing with an injury and we haven't seen him on the ice basically at all. So I think the Sharks are going to be really smart and be slow with him, and as he's coming back from an injury. But it helps to kind of make that Aaron Dell signing make even more sense right now, where it's not where Aaron Dell can play in the AHL until Makiniemi's back up to speed. So I still think Makiniemi has a really bright future, but it's a little tough where we haven't gotten to see anything from him yet. Just, you want to at least see how he looks, or just see him on the ice at some point. So little tough with him, with his stock right now. And again, it's not his fault coming back from an injury, but we just want to see him play. So, and the final stock up, Luke Kunin, who played on the top line with Timo Meier and Tomas Hertl. He's been getting pretty good praise. It looks like he's kind of slotted in for that third line role. But I have a feeling he's going to be one of those guys where you're probably going to see him up and down the lineup all throughout the season. Like if he's playing, I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing with Couture at some point, and then if maybe there's some injuries, maybe he's playing on the Hertl line at some point, or if he's kind of on a hot streak. So he's one of those weird guys where a lot of the analytics tell you what does he do well, but he scores, and the Sharks need scoring. So, and we saw that on Sunday where Hertl fed him a nice pass and he was able to tip that in. So, and I think for the Sharks right now, any secondary scoring that they can get, they're going to be happy with, because that's just something that they've struggled with. So yeah, stock up, stock down. Labanc stock up. You got to be happy with that coming into camp. Stock hold on Bordeleau and Eklund. Want to see how Quinn responds to what they've been putting on tape and how their practices have been going. Stock up on kind of those bubble defensemen, we'll call them, in Nudavara, Vlasic, and Šimik. Getting an opportunity, fresh start. Looks like they're kind of making the most of their opportunities right now. Stock up on Luke Kunin, and then stock down on the goalie, Eetu Makiniemi. Just tough situation dealing with the injury right now, and we'd like to see him on the ice at some point. And I think, like I said, I think Strauss-Mann and Makiniemi will be a really fun goalie tandem for the CUDA this year. So hopefully he gets to start finding his form and getting back out there soon. So it would suck if the Sharks traded for him and we never really get to see him back up to full speed. So yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to recap. So the Sharks schedule, I was really screwed up on my dates and schedule yesterday. My bad. Time is a flat circle and has no meaning anymore. So more of an updated real schedule now. So we'll be back on Tuesday as the Sharks take on the Ducks. I'm not sure if it's going to be on TV. If not, we'll have a reaction after that game for that'll be for Tuesday night, and then for your Wednesday episode. Wednesday, we'll probably look at maybe where the Barracuda roster is and kind of how things are stacking up for them. And then, Wednesday, the Sharks have they have too many preseason. Wednesday, they have another preseason game. So we're probably just going to be covering preseason games most of this time. And then Friday, they have the old split squad. So, yeah, Tuesday night, Wednesday night games, Friday night split squad. So we're going to be covering all those. Maybe try to squeak in a nice kind of Barracuda roster, see how those projected lines look in there as well, because someone did ask for that. So try to get that in there as best I can. All right, so that's going to be it for today. Make sure you guys are following along on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram over at Locked On Sharks. Then subscribe wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, you know the deal, all those places. Wherever you're listening, you can continue to listen. So just make sure you guys hit subscribe. If you're on Apple, please leave a nice 5-star review. Leave a little review as well. So it makes me feel good about myself. I can show it to the bosses and be like, hey, look, people like listening to me for some reason. So go do that. If you really want to help me out, make sure you guys are subscribing and watching on YouTube. So yeah, go ahead and again, hit subscribe. Gonna want to do it, especially as the season gets going here. So gonna try to do more stuff on the YouTube, so that way you guys can get more live right after the game reactions, so which are always fun. You can find me on Twitter at myfryhole, and again, go check out Locked On NHL when you guys are done listening to this. Be back tomorrow with a nice recap of the next Sharks preseason game. So yeah. Bye, friends.